Hello and welcome to Theatre.Reviews with Paul Seven. I'm here at the Haymarket in Basingstoke to see Wodehouse in Wonderland. The world is divided between those who love PG Wodehouse's books and those who hate them. Well, that's not strictly true, because there must be a large proportion of the world that has no opinion at all about them. But if you do have a positive opinion about the man known to his friends as Plum, I think you'll enjoy Wodehouse in Wonderland. I say think because, although there are many quotes from the great man's books, this is not a play about Jeeves and Wooster or Lord Emsworth, but rather a dip into the mind of the man himself. And Wodehouse alone on stage is not as funny as his books, but that doesn't mean there isn't a lot to enjoy in this one-man play, especially since the man in question is the very talented Robert Daws. So keep watching and I'll tell you what I think about Wodehouse in Wonderland and a bit more about its star. Of course, you may share Plum's opinion of reviewers. Has anybody ever seen a drama critic in the daytime, he said? Of course not. They come out after dark, up to no good. Before I talk about Wodehouse in Wonderland, may I just remind you to feel free to comment or like, and better still to subscribe to this channel. So, Wodehouse in Wonderland, which I saw at the Haymarket in Basingstoke. As someone who seems quintessentially English, Wodehouse spent a lot of time in America. As a young man in the period after the First World War, he was there writing the lyrics to a number of successful musical comedies, working mainly with Guy Bolton and the great Jerome Kern. After the Second World War, he took up permanent residence there and never returned to England. And it is quite late in his life that we meet him in his American home. We're treated to much Wodehouse wit as he talks in letters to his beloved daughter Leonora, quote, without whose never-failing sympathy and encouragement, this book would have been finished in half the time, and to an unseen biographer who asks him earnest questions about the effect of his almost parentless childhood. William Humble's script is certainly interesting and amusing, and it is fortunate that Robert Daws is such a brilliant actor that he's able to capture the whole audience with a smile and an anecdote. But compared to one of Wodehouse's stories, the play lacks one crucial element. As Wodehouse himself said, if they aren't in interesting situations, characters can't be major characters. And in the first act at least, Wodehouse isn't in an interesting situation. There's none of the great conflict that you get between, say, Jeeves and Wooster, nor the complex plots that Wodehouse spent weeks working out and that propelled his characters into ever more difficult situations. Truth be told, unlike his characters, Wodehouse is not larger than life. And not only that, he erects a considerable defence to prevent anyone from discovering any interesting depths. He won't allow his biographer, or us, to dip into more than the shallows of his mind. As he said, I believe there are two ways of writing novels. One is making a sort of musical comedy without music and ignoring real life altogether. The other is going deep down into life. Making clear his preference for the former, he said, it was not that I had any particular message for humanity. I'm still plugging away and not the ghost of one so far. So it begins to look as though unless I suddenly hit mid-season form in my 80s, humanity will remain a message short. So, this is the challenge for anyone writing a play about P.G. Wodehouse, and William Humble only really meets it when we get to the second act. Then the twin tragedies of Wodehouse's adult life are revealed when, as he put it himself, it's always just when a chappie is feeling particularly top-hole and more than usually braced with things in general that fate sneaks up behind him with a bit of lead piping. Add to which he found, in another of his immortal phrases, the supply of the milk of human kindness was short by several gallons. We see, illuminated in flashes as it were, the depths to which he must have sunk before pulling himself back up using the safety line of writing comedy. And writing was his life. Whatever else there was going on, he worked hard at his typewriter, turning out 3 or 4 books a year. He appears frivolous, out of touch with the real world. In fact, his critics describe him as frivolous and dislike the way he creates a bubble in which his characters and their stories exist. Yet, from the extracts that William Humble regularly inserts into the proceedings, we realise that Wodehouse showed a level of craftsmanship that his contemporaries struggled to equal. His writing is funnier, and even though his characters are not realistic, they are vividly real. Oh, and he sings songs. I mentioned Wodehouse's early success as a lyricist. Well, in the 1920s, he was renowned as much as a writer of musical comedies as he was a comic novelist, and were treated to quite a few of his songs in this play. I'm pleased to report Mr Daws has a fine voice. It's not easy to keep it visually interesting when you only have one person on a stage and no special effects, but director Robert Herford injects a good rhythm into the production. And the design by Lee Newby is just right. It's a natural reproduction of a study in a bright and beautiful house outside New York, with the writing desk dead in the centre and where, metaphorically, the sun always shines. To sum up, this is a slightly flawed play, but still a very enjoyable evening, made exceptional by the quality of Robert Daws' performance. You can't help but be charmed by him, as charmed as I imagine you would be by meeting Plum himself. This is a production that could easily run in the West End, where you'd pay £100 to see it. On this tour of the UK, you can probably catch it for under £30. Top hole, I say. I hope you enjoyed this review, or at least found it useful, and if you did, then please comment, like and subscribe to my channel so that you'll be the first to know about my future reviews. If you want to read my reviews, go to Theatre.Reviews, and you can follow me on Mastodon, Twitter, Instagram and Facebook. Thank you for watching.